Imagine you are driving through your neighborhood on a quiet afternoon. You look out the window and see the next-door neighbor. He has just arrived home in a brand-new sports utility vehicle. The paint shines under the sun and the leather smells new. Immediately, your brain makes an automatic and almost unconscious assumption. You think that neighbor is doing incredibly well financially. We associate shiny and expensive objects with wealth and success. It is programming we have received since we were small children. But the reality of personal finance is often counterintuitive. I have spent years obsessed with what millionaires actually do. I am Jose, and I dedicate my time to studying the psychology of money. I am fascinated by understanding why we make the financial decisions we make. And something I have learned is that wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is the cars that weren't bought that year. It is the home renovations that were postponed indefinitely. It is the designer clothes that stayed in the store. Today, I want to take you on a deep journey through the wealthy mindset. We are going to explore the exact things that rich people avoid buying. This could completely change the way you see your bank account, because the difference between looking rich and being rich is vast. And it all starts with the biggest trap of the middle class. I'm talking about the modern obsession with luxury and new transportation. Think about it carefully for a moment with total honesty. Society tells us that a new car is a status symbol. But truly, rich people see cars as a tool. For them, a vehicle is simply a means to get from one point to another. They know that a new car loses value the moment it leaves the lot. The instant you drive the car off the dealership lot, you lose money. Statistically, a car loses 10% of its value immediately. And after a year, it has lost more than 20%. If you buy a $50,000 car, you lose $10,000. That is money that vanishes into thin air without any real benefit. Rich people prefer to buy high-quality, reliable used cars. They understand that depreciation is the silent enemy of wealth building. They prefer that someone else pays that massive initial depreciation premium. I remember reading about a billionaire who drove an old sedan. He didn't do it because he was stingy or because he didn't have money. He did it because he understood the opportunity cost of that money. $50,000 invested in the market is much more valuable. That money could turn into $500,000 in a few decades. Instead, a luxury car will be worth zero at the end of its life. It is a fundamental mindset shift that is difficult to accept. We want to feel good, and we want others to admire us now. But the admiration of strangers doesn't pay our retirement bills. And this brings us directly to the second important point of today: fast fashion clothes and the fleeting trends of every season. We live in a world where fashion changes practically every week. Social media bombards us with what we must wear today. But if you observe the richest people in the world, you will see a pattern. They often wear very simple clothes in neutral and basic colors. You won't see giant luxury brand logos on their t-shirts. The need to show off brands is often a sign of insecurity. It is an attempt to prove to the world that you have money to spend. Rich people prefer to spend on quality rather than quantity. They prefer to buy a pair of $300 shoes that last 10 years, instead of 10 pairs of $30. There is an interesting economic theory called the boots theory. It says that being poor is expensive because you buy cheap things that break. The rich can afford to buy quality once and forget about the subject. But they flatly refuse to chase fast fashion trends. They know that fashion is an industry designed to make you feel inadequate. If your clothes from last year no longer work, then you must spend more. It is an endless cycle of consumption that drains your net worth. Jose, you might say, but I like to look good and fashionable. And that is totally valid if it makes you genuinely happy. But ask yourself if you do it for you or for others. Most of the time, we spend to curate a public image. An image that nobody cares about as much as we do ourselves. And speaking of images and instant and easy gratification, let's talk about food and how we feed ourselves in 2026. Convenience has become the most expensive drug of our era. Food delivery apps are a massive financial trap. Paying $30 for a burger that costs $5 is crazy. Rich people value their time, but they also value value. You will rarely see a self-made millionaire wasting money like that. They understand that small daily expenses add up to large sums. It is not about depriving yourself of enjoying a good meal out. It is about the intention behind the spending and not the habit. If you go out to dinner, it should be an experience and not laziness. Cooking at home is one of the most common habits of millionaires. It is healthier for your body and drastically better for your pocket. The cost difference between eating out and cooking is astronomical. Imagine investing those $300 monthly in an index fund. Throughout your working life, that is a lost fortune. It is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we deserve that treat. We work hard and are tired at the end of the workday. But that daily treat keeps us chained to that hard work. It is a vicious cycle where we spend to compensate for work stress we have because we need money to pay those expenses. Breaking this cycle requires awareness and a little initial discipline. And while we talk about waste and money that escapes, we must talk about bank fees and credit card interest. This is perhaps the point that angers rich people the most. The idea of paying the bank to use your own money is absurd. Financially successful people never pay late fees. They have all their payments automated so they never miss one. They never pay interest on their credit cards under any circumstance. They use credit cards as a convenient payment tool. They get points and rewards and protection against fraud and theft, but they pay the full balance every month without fail or exception. Paying 20% interest is a financial emergency. There is no investment in the world that pays you that guaranteed. If you have credit card debt, you are a slave to the bank. You are working hours of your life just to pay for the past. The rich refuse to give away their money to financial institutions. They negotiate rates and look for accounts without maintenance fees. They are meticulous with where every penny of their earned money goes. It isn't being stingy, it is being efficient with your limited resources. And speaking of resources and how we allocate them at home, let's talk about technology and the obsession with the latest thing. Every year, a new phone comes out with a slightly better camera. And millions of people line up to spend $1,000 more. Rich people rarely update their technology every year without reason. They use their phones and computers until they stop working well. They understand that technology is a tool to produce and create. It is not a toy to show off that you have the latest model. The annual upgrade cycle is a stroke of genius of modern marketing. They make us feel that our current device is obsolete and useless. But if it works to send emails and make calls, it is sufficient. Warren Buffett is famous for using an old flip phone. He didn't need a next-generation smartphone to make billions. The need to have the latest is another form of insecurity. It is the fear of being left behind or not being relevant. But your relevance does not come from the device in your pocket. It comes from your capacity to contribute value to the real world. And speaking of contributing value and unrealistic expectations, let's talk about the lottery and gambling in general. This is often called the poor tax. The statistics are clear and the rich understand mathematical probabilities. The probability of winning the lottery is practically non-existent in reality. Spending money on lottery tickets is throwing money in the trash. The rich do not depend on luck to build their fortune. They depend on strategy and discipline and time. They prefer a slow but sure return over a long shot. The get-rich-quick mindset is a dangerous trap. It stops you from taking the necessary and boring steps to grow. Building wealth is boring most of the time. It is saving and investing and waiting for years and decades. There is no adrenaline in seeing an index fund grow slowly, but that is the sure route to real financial freedom. And speaking of things we spend on without thinking much, extended warranties on electronics and appliances are a scam. Mathematically, extended warranties are almost never worth it for you. They are a huge profit margin product for stores. They know that the probability of the product failing is low, and they know that the repair cost is usually lower. Rich people prefer to self-insure their own goods and products. They have an emergency fund to cover if something breaks. They don't need to pay a monthly premium just in case something happens. It is better to keep that money in your own bank account. Over time, the money you save on warranties covers repairs, and you probably have a lot of money left over at the end of the road. It is a matter of evaluating risk logically. Fear makes us buy insurance that we don't really need. The rich insure catastrophic things they cannot pay for, like their house or their health or their life itself. But they don't insure a toaster or a consumer television. And continuing with the topic of purchases for the home, let's talk about name brands on daily basic products. Going to the supermarket can be an eye-opening experience if you look closely. Rich people are not afraid to buy generic brands. They know that often the product is exactly the same. Generic ibuprofen is chemically identical to the brand name one. Flour and sugar and salt are commodities. Paying 30% more for a pretty label is illogical. Corporations spend millions on advertising to create that loyalty. They want you to believe that their brand tastes better or works better. But if you look at the ingredients, you will see that there is no difference. The rich don't pay for the marketing of big companies. They pay for the product and its real utility to them. This small distinction saves thousands of dollars a year. And those thousands of dollars compounded at 8% grow. They turn into hundreds of thousands over the course of decades. Everything counts when it comes to compounding interest. It is the snowball effect applied to your daily expenses. And there is an area where spending is especially emotional. I'm talking about excessive spending on children and kids. We all want the best for our children. It is something natural. But buying designer clothes for a baby is absurd. The baby is going to grow and leave that clothing behind in months. Kids don't care about the brand of their clothes. They just want to play and feel loved and be comfortable. The rich often teach their children the value of money. They don't give them everything they ask for instantly. They understand that strategic deprivation builds character and resilience. Filling a room with toys that aren't used doesn't help. It creates an expectation of instant gratification that harms the child. It is better to invest that money in their future education or in experiences that create lasting and meaningful family memories. Materialism is not a value you want to instill early. And speaking of things we don't use and that we pay for, unused subscriptions are the vampires of your wallet. In the year 2026, everything is a subscription. Gyms you never go to and streaming services. Monthly subscription boxes that fill your house with junk. Rich people review their recurring expenses with a magnifying glass. If they don't use something, they cancel it immediately without hesitation. It is very easy to sign up and very hard to remember to cancel later. Companies count on your laziness and your lack of attention. They know that you will keep paying those $10 out of inertia, but $10 here and $20 there add up to a fortune. It is the principle of death by 1,000 small cuts. Do an audit of your subscriptions this weekend. You will be surprised how much money you are giving away every month. And finally, we arrive at the most important point of all, the number one thing that the rich don't spend on. They don't spend money to impress other people. We have returned to the beginning of our conversation today. The need for external validation is a bottomless pit. You will never have enough stuff to satisfy others. There will always be someone with a better car than you. There will always be someone with a bigger house. If you play the comparison game, you are always going to lose. The true rich have exited that game completely. They don't care what the neighbor thinks of their car. They care about their freedom and their security and their time. Money for them is a tool to buy freedom. It is not a tool to buy temporary social status. When you stop spending to impress, something magical happens. Suddenly, you have money left over at the end of the month. You stop feeling that constant pressure in your chest. You start to sleep better at night without worries. Your value as a human being is not in your things. It is in who you are and how you treat others. It is in your experiences and in your knowledge and kindness. This is the mental transformation that you must actively seek. Stop looking at the neighbor with the new car and start looking at your own balance sheet and your future. It is a road less traveled and sometimes lonely, but it is the only road that leads to real wealth. I hope these ideas resonate with you in some way. Maybe you see yourself reflected in some of these habits, and that is fine because we are all constantly learning. The important thing is to become aware and make small adjustments today. You don't have to change everything overnight. Start with one thing this week and make progress. Cancel that subscription or cook more at home. Your future self will thank you for these small sacrifices. Financial freedom is worth more than any luxury car. Thank you for allowing me to share this with you today. Keep building and keep learning and keep growing. See you at the next step of this journey.